the dusty little town of Rattlesnake. Crossing lay quiet under the burning Arizona sun, its wooden storefronts creaking whenever a hot wind blew across the empty main road. And in that silence walked a man nobody paid much attention to, Elias Crow, the cowboy everyone believed was the weakest, slowest, most harmless soul to ever saddle a horse. He moved with a slight limp, his shoulders narrow, his hat always pulled low to hide tired eyes that looked like they carried old scars. And whenever he spoke, which wasn't often, his voice trembled just enough for folks to dismiss him as a scared ranch hand who never grew out of boyhood. The blacksmith snickered whenever Elias passed by with his worn boots dragging through the dirt. The saloon boys shoved him aside when he tried to walk in for a drink. Even children mimicked his limp as he crossed the street, and Elias would pretend not to notice. But he felt every laugh, every whisper, every insult burning against his skin like the desert sun. What no one knew was that Elias had a reason for keeping his eyes low and his voice soft. Because Rattlesnake Crossing was a place where strength was measured by how loud you were, how fast you drew a gun, and how many men you'd killed before breakfast. And Elias didn't want any part of that life anymore. He'd ridden in enough wars, buried enough friends, and learned a long time ago that the loudest men often died the quickest. So he let them call him weak. He let them laugh. He let them think he was nothing. That was the safest thing for them. But everything began to change the day the Red Viper gang thundered into town, kicking up a storm of dust as their horses charged down Main Street. Their leader, Colton Briggs, a ruthless, sunburned outlaw with a black coat and a reputation for shooting first and asking never. His men surrounded the town like wolves circling sheep, firing warning shots into the air and yelling for everyone to come out of their homes. People rushed from shops and barns with their hands raised, fear choking their throats. Colton dismounted with a grin that could freeze blood. "And we're looking for a man named Elias Crow," he announced, his voice echoing off the saloon walls. Townsfolk looked around in confusion, then in disbelief, then in pity because of all the men in the Arizona territory. Why would a notorious outlaw gang come for Elias, the man nobody believed capable of hurting a fly? The blacksmith whispered, "Why him? He's the weakest cowboy alive." And someone laughed nervously, thinking this must be a mistake. Elias stepped out from behind the feed store, his heart steady but his eyes calculating, because he knew exactly why the gang had come, but he wished they hadn't. Colton pointed straight at him. "You've got something that belongs to me, boy," he growled. The townspeople watched Elias swallow hard, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he removed his hat slowly and said, "Colton, you really don't want to do this?" The crowd gasped. Elias had never spoken like that before. Colton spat in the dirt. "And what's a weak little coward like you gonna do about it?" Elias didn't answer, because answering would mean revealing the truth he'd been hiding for years, the truth that would shock not just Colton's men, but the entire town. The outlaw grabbed Elias by the shirt and slammed him against a post outside the saloon. "If you don't give me what's mine," Colton snarled, "I'll burn this whole town to ash." Women screamed and trembled. The sheriff stood frozen, unsure what to do. Elias's eyes closed, not in fear, but in regret. He whispered, "Last warning, Colton. Walk away." Colton threw his head back and laughed, signaling his men to prepare their rifles. And that was when the ground, the earth itself, seemed to rumble. A low, thunderous tremor rolled across the desert, like the growl of some ancient beast. At first, everyone thought it was a storm, but there were no clouds. Then they thought it was a landslide, but the mountains were still. Then over the ridge, they appeared, shadows, dozens of them, rising from the shimmering heat like ghosts, riders, bare-chested, warriors with painted faces, feathers streaming behind them, sun glinting off their weapons. The sheriff fell to his knees. "Apache!" The townsfolk backed up in shock as 77 Apache warriors rode down the ridge in perfect formation, their expressions stern, unwavering, powerful. Not raiders, not enemies, not scouts, friends, and at the front was Chief 10 Hawks, a towering figure with long braids and eyes like burning coals. Without a word, he dismounted, walked past the terrified citizens, past the trembling outlaws, and stood directly in front of Elias, then placed a strong hand on the cowboy's shoulder. "Brother," Ten Hawk said. The town gasped. Colton staggered back. Elias raised his head, and for the first time, the people of Rattlesnake Crossing saw him not as a weak cowboy, but as someone dangerous, respected, and deeply connected to a force far greater than anything in the territory. Colton tried to keep his voice steady. What is this?" Elias brushed dust from his shirt, rolled his shoulders, and spoke in a voice that no longer trembled. "This," he said, "is why you should have walked away." The Apache warriors tensed, ready for battle. The Red Viper gang panicked, hands hovering over their guns. And the town, which had mocked Elias all his life, suddenly realized they'd never known who he really was, or what he was capable of. "Colton," Elias said calmly, "you came here to take something that ain't yours. You brought danger to innocent people. You threatened my home. Now you answer for that." The outlaw opened his mouth to reply, but he never got the chance, because an Apache arrow whistled past his ear and struck the post beside him, vibrating with warning. The message was clear. The next one would not miss. Elias stepped forward, no longer the weak cowboy, now the man who had once saved an Apache prince, the man who had earned the lifelong loyalty of 77 of the fiercest warriors to ever walk the desert. The man the Red Viper gang should have feared more than anyone. And as the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the trembling town, one truth settled over everyone like smoke from a wildfire. The weak cowboy was never weak at all, and the night was only just beginning.